In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com.
Hey, do y'all like fishing for prizes? Maybe a trip to Costa Rica or a once-in-a-lifetime African safari? Well, the Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo is back. Thanks to the hard work of Visit Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Trilogy Outdoors Media, this once-popular event is back and is bigger and better than ever. This event is comprised of 12 monthly competitions that culminate in November with our annual banquet and expo, the celebration of fishing on the Grand Strand. New to this event is the freshwater division that will help include all of our anglers that live and visit the Grand Strand throughout the year. Monthly species winners will receive great prize packages from Bass Pro Shop and Surf Signs and Designs. But most importantly, they will receive an invite for them and a guest to our annual banquet and an entry in the grand prize drawing. So whether you fish the rivers, a pond, the pier, the surf, or a boat, you have a chance to win the grand prizes. To get signed up or for additional information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com and click on event. Also, you can visit any of our weigh stations and registration stations to get signed up as well. Thanks to our wonderful sponsors, South Atlantic Bank, Surf Signs and Designs, Bass Pro Shops, Trilogy Outdoors Media, Visit Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and many more. Best of luck to everyone, and we'll see you at the scale.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome back to Trilogy Outdoors. This week we are, Stephen, we are finally out of the Trilogy Outdoor Podcast studio and on the road, and we are at the lodge here at Featherhorn Farms.
Excited to be here.
Man, super excited. You know, I can call him a friend. I mean, I'm going to call him a friend. We met years ago, but I have tried to secretly, you know, get an invite here through the years, through just subtle texts every now and then, and never worked. But
it requires friends in high places.
It does. It does. And I want to thank your friend who invited us.
I'm not the friend in high places.
No, you're not. No, you're not. And we'll let you introduce your friend from high places who was kind enough to invite us to come up and enjoy a tradition in South Carolina.
Yeah, I'd be honored.
Without a doubt. We've talked a lot about duck hunting over the year. And we're going to talk a lot about duck hunting in this episode, and a lot of other stuff. Are we going to take it easy on that guest today, or are we going to?
I don't know. We may talk a little politics.
All right.
We may talk a little politics. I'm honored to introduce my friend and my colleague from the South Carolina State House, the South Carolina Senate, Thomas McElveen, representing Senate District 35. Tell me, if you could, the counties that you represent.
So I represent Sumter County, where I'm from, and then Kershaw County, Lee County, and part of Richland County as well.
All right.
Oh, wow.
And obviously a huge fan of the show. Excited to be a part of the 44th episode.
Yes.
45th episode.
40.
I think it's 45th. I you know what? I think it's 45.
Mr. Producer, how many episodes have we had?
It's 45. Yeah, we got. Hey,
No,
shout out to Moses down there.
You're good. We got a producer on the end, Marion Moses. Thank you for joining us, Marion.
From 75 to 150 people.
What the heck is that?
Everybody gets together.
That's you playing.
That would be. I am playing episode 43 in the background, so this would be 44.
44. Okay, very good.
So we're on 44.
All right, so 44, and We have yet to have you on the podcast, but you and I have done. We've done a few outdoorsy type activities together, right?
Yeah, and we tried this summer to have a podcast episode. I think Captain E had some.
Oh, you got
It was
sick.
no, it was back in the fall.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Captain E had some
It was me.
breakdown on the way.
You had what'd you have? COVID or something?
Car. No, I
Car
think
Oh,
that
your
was
truck. Your
my
truck.
truck.
Everybody uses the COVID.
Your truck. Yeah, the COVID.
No, thank you for the new truck, by the way. Yeah, we had truck issues. It was called spitting oil out. Yeah.
All right, so you just heard the voice of another friend of ours, someone who is also going to be joining us on the podcast today. Captain E, you want to introduce?
Jimmy Lee.
Yes, sir.
Man, it's great to be with you, brother.
Well, thank you.
You got a beautiful place. You got a beautiful place here.
Well, thank you.
And I joked with you and sent you a bunch of videos, but I didn't watch them. I listened to some videos on the way here on YouTube, driving here to get kind of pumped up. Not that I needed it, but our good friend Jay Gregg from Carolina Outdoors TV was here, and heck, you've had
That was a while ago.
a while ago, but we've also got two new writers for our magazine, Blake and Daryl Hodge, who I think have been here and
Yeah.
hunted with you as well.
Yes. Yes.
The Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, that is them.
And I wasn't joking earlier. I have wanted to get over here for a long time. I hunt across the street in the past with Dale Avens, a mutual friend who introduced us. And I heard so much about this place. Spent one evening over here doing some fun shooting shooting some skeet, playing Annie Oakley, I think was the game, or knockout.
Having
whatever.
a good time.
Having
That's
a good time. But I'm looking forward to getting out and hunting tomorrow. And
Heck of a nice place you got here.
Thank you, sir.
The lodge is spectacular. Great work.
it is.
You can't see it if you're listening to the sound of my voice, but
Don't worry, I'll have video up. I'll get video tomorrow.
It's really sight to behold. Great work, beautiful, inviting place, and I would say that this is, how big of a building is this? I was going to guess, but how big is it?
1,500, 2,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Wow.
We're in a 2,000 square foot lodge with rough cut timber.
Yep.
Big. It looks like it's more than that to me, but mounts all over the place, high ceilings, beautiful place that you want
Exactly what you would expect
what
for
you
a
would
lodge.
want, what you would want for a hunting lodge, exactly what you would want. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no doubt.
Glad y'all here.
We're excited to be here. How's the duck season been so far?
Duck season's been good. It really has. We opened up our season in November, and for that first week of Thanksgiving, and it's been really good. We killed almost 1,180 ducks.
Wow.
I mean, I don't think we can do it any better,
Yeah.
So, the Lord has blessed us, and we've had plenty of ducks come in, and we've taken advantage of it.
You put a lot of work in, though.
Well-
You and I think when we officially met originally, I don't think you had but one pond at that time started.
Well, we were a small little club, and we've grown for sure. We float about 500 acres now, and we're lucky to have some of the great people in the state support us and come out and enjoy what the great outdoors is all about.
Now, we are officially in Rimini. Is that, or is that?
Panola.
Okay.
Panola. I like Panola, but we're between Rimini and Summerton. Small community. Panola is kind of where we're at.
And this has really become a waterfowl corridor in South Carolina, this area. And I say that from experience of being here, but there's a lot of similar areas in the close proximity to here, isn't there?
There's a lot of waterfowl impoundments in this area for sure. Yeah, it's grown. So I grew up in this area. Most of this area was just farmland. If you wanted to go duck hunting, you went on Santee, Lake Marion, and the swamps, the little branches around your house or whatever. But there was never after the lake was sprayed and Hurricane Hugo and 100 other excuses why we lost all the ducks in this area. It kind of changed, and the only food that was around was the impoundments.
So before you go any farther, let's talk about that for just a second. Okay, so when you said when the lake was sprayed, you mean they sprayed it for hydrilla?
Yeah.
Okay, hydrilla is an invasive species. So they didn't want the invasive species, but the invasive species also happen to be great duck food and great duck cover.
Oh, no doubt.
And so when they killed it all, it eliminated a bunch of the duck habitat, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, and so that's when private landowners started picking up the slack from what used to occur on the big lakes.
Well, almost. I would say this area it almost happened by accident. The waterfowl came in and started developing properties in the area. One of the local farmers, Dale's father, Larry Avens, kind of saw that there was a way to make his farmland more productive than just harvesting the crop.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and so he started impounding the land and planting the crops and then shooting ducks over. I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's what happened. He started a club. That club took off. Everybody else in the state saw that if you plant, they will come. You know, that kind of old saying. And it's been really not just successful, but it's been really beneficial for this whole area, for the lake, public hunters. Whether some of them believe it or not. But
Thank you. Keep going. I'm with you on that. I'm a public water hunter, but I agree with you.
Well, our refuge used to hold, hundreds of thousands of ducks, and refuge doesn't do that anymore. But they don't manage it kind of like a private farm would by any means. And you can see. I mean, the reason there's ducks over on the refuge now is there's no disturbance.
Right.
And
it's more like a rest area.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those ducks get off those rest areas or the refuge, and they come to these impoundments to eat, whether it's on this side of the lake, or Two Rivers area, the cooling ponds up at IP. Those ducks are using these ponds to feed in. I mean, you can see it. The big reservoir up by Shaw Air Force Base, Glasscock's. I can't remember what you call it now, but that area.
Bar pit. Or
Yeah, the bar pit. They hold thousands of ducks, and those ducks will get up and move to these impoundments.
Yeah.
There's impoundments all the way down, really, from Sumter all the way. I'm gonna say all the way to the dam. There's impoundments scattered out in there, but this area. I mean, there's thousands of acres of habitat.
So, and I'm sure Senator McElveen's pleased about that. His district.
You can call me Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. It being in his district or pretty darn close to his district, he's got a lot of activity that he wouldn't normally have. But do you find that activity begets activity, and that's not a great question for a lawyer. So let me rephrase. Does the amount of impoundments and the amount of people putting pressure on ducks around here create a negative effect, or do you think that activity begets activity? In other words, the more impoundments, the more water under control and managed has created an environment where there's actually more ducks.
Who's that question for? Because I think
Listen, I think.
Well, I'll ask any of
I
y'all.
think Jimmy will probably forget more about habitat management than I'll ever know about duck habitat. So that's probably a question for him.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
the group.
You have different landowners that have different ideas or different plans. You have two really good duck clubs in the area. I'm gonna say it like that. Two duck clubs in the area. Yeah. You have the Waterfowl Association, and then you have private landowners that have their own impoundment. I believe that no doubt we have more food for ducks in this area in impoundments. I'm talking about agriculture food, chufa, corn, millet, whatever, than we've ever had. But you look back at all the habitat we lost with the lake. The lake's 100,000 acres.
Right.
Yep.
So we lost a lot of habitat out there, a lot of food source for these ducks. And now they're more concentrated, maybe feeding on these ponds. But there's a lot of times that we see these ponds, they're feeding at night, and those ducks are going back to the lake. they've had a very successful. A lot of the public duck hunters have had a lot of success on the lake this year because you could see the ducks getting off of these impoundments, moving in the mornings, going back to the lake. They were feeding in here, and that's how they are right now. I mean, you can go there and watch them in the afternoon. They're coming in, feeding. They're leaving back out, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Or when there's a disturbance, we're going in there to go hunting.
Yep.
So for the two guys sitting across the table from you, that'd be me and Senator McElveen, Thomas, who are intricately involved in the writing of wildlife legislation. There are, as you probably know, there are a number of states that have instituted cutoff time periods for shooting, right? I mean, you just described a scenario to me where a duck's leaving food, going back to rest, but before the duck gets back to rest, the duck gets shot or gets shot at.
We don't have any rest.
Well, there you go. So
there's no rest.
Do we need rest? Do we need to cut it off?
I think it would be beneficial if there was some. The problem is if you cut off rest at, let's just say 12 o'clock. You say no duck hunting after 12, but me and Captain E are going out there to catch a largemouth, at 3 o'clock this afternoon. He's under that cypress tree, and we're going to disturb him.
Yeah.
I think it's a constant disturbance. Do I think it would help? Oh, yeah, I think it would help. 12 o'clock, we cut it off and no more shooting. That would prevent all the shooting on the roost. You think about the ones that are not so law-abiding, that are going to try to get away with the extra 15 minutes.
Right.
That would curtail all of that. You would hope.
It would be pretty easy to identify if somebody's breaking the law, right? You hear bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
You don't have to guess if it's 1 minute before or after.
That's right. Mr. Green Jeans would be zeroed in on you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I don't think it's putting more work on them. I mean, you're making their job easier, like we just said. I mean, I think where you're worried about whether it was a minute or so after, if it came after 12,
I agree. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting idea. I mean, other states have done it.
Arkansas, obviously.
Well, yeah, they
Theirs
have.
is what, 12 and off the water by 1 or something?
Yeah.
Decoys can't be out after 12 or I can't remember. I did hear about this.
I'm not sold on what would work for South Carolina yet. I haven't given it enough thought, but I've been toying with that idea a little bit. I just wanted to hear what your opinion was. What's your opinion of that, Thomas?
I'm kind of like you. It's not something I've thought about a whole lot. I mean, with duck hunting, it's something kind of new to me. I didn't grow up doing it, and as you know, love the turkey hunt, like to shoot doves. Grew up doing a lot of deer hunting, but I have not duck hunted a whole lot, and I really enjoy being able to come here and enjoy Jimmy's place and do some of that. But it's something that I'm not.
You need to study
that. It would
that.
require further study from me too.
Yeah.
Further input. Yeah.
It's not
from people like Jimmy. I mean,
it's not an uncommon thing, though. I mean, people have debated this for years. And I talked to one of our podcasts, one of the most prolific duck guides in the United States. His name is Charles Snap. He had a huge guide operation in Arkansas, one of the first duck guides in Arkansas, northeast Arkansas. I actually worked for him years ago as a duck guide.
He was desperate at that point in time.
Yeah, he was very desperate at that time. But, his thing, it's pretty simple calculation. If you're doing calculus for ducks, it's pretty simple. It's food and rest, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's it. You got to now. I mean, you can get a little more complicated with that. You got to have nesting habitat where they nest and breeding habitat. But for us, where we're not talking about nesting and breeding, for us, it's simple. It's food and it's rest.
Yes, it is.
And do we have the food? Well, certainly the private landowners in South Carolina are picking up the slack for where public lands have in some cases slacked off, right? I mean, we have the same issue at the coast you have here, but on a different layer, a different lane, I would say. Maybe more like less management rather than more.
Yeah.
Here it seems like excessive management created the problem. Management of something other than ducks. There on the coast, it's like lack of management, right?
I agree.
Maybe ignorance is a better way to put that. People that aren't qualified to be doing the job, but it's lack of management on the coast. And so all over the state of South Carolina, you can see that. There are pockets of good management, but there are pockets of really bad management too. And we've got to get better overall as a state for waterfowl. But we have made a big improvement. In the last year, Senator McElveen and I supported a measure to do a waterfowl advisory committee. The waterfowl advisory committee is made up of people like you that come along, that have grown up in this industry, that know it intricately inside and out, that know how to manage wet soil management, all from tidal stuff, brackish stuff, all the way to freshwater stuff. And now those guys are advising the legislature and DNR on what needs to be done on WMAs. So that's a huge step in the direction of getting waterfowl fixed in South Carolina. Now they've only had 3 meetings, so it's not like they've done a whole lot yet. But, I mean, the last report that the Waterfowl Advisory Committee just issued from Bob Perry, who used to be at DNR, was stop putting sterile carp in the lakes, right?
Yeah, I'm all for that too.
So, I mean, the very first report that the Waterfowl Advisory Committee issued is stop putting sterile carp in the lakes. Stop spraying for hydrilla was the next thing in the next paragraph. So I think they're making progress. I hope we're making progress. And people like you are very instrumental to helping us understand what we need to be doing a little better on our side of the aisle.
That's a great step. I mean, going forward, that's a great step, especially with our WMAs. I mean, there's some WMAs that don't really kill many ducks, and they spend a ton of money on them, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I was at a meeting the opening day of the second season, and I was kind of blown back with the money that the state spends on these WMAs, and there's not much return.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can cut me in half, and I'll make sure we kill more than 6 ducks.
I'll produce double.
Yeah.
I'll produce double that
Yeah.
for half of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted your opinion on that, and I was sure you had probably heard all that stuff. But I wanted your opinion on that because it does. I mean, we live where I hunt is right in the heart of 3 of those that were named in that report that they discussed how bad they were and the lack of birds. And
I was down there, like I said, that Monday opening day, and I hunted, and there's a lot of ducks in that area, man. And it's always been a lot of ducks in that area, but there's so many acreages, private acreages, that are not even managed like they used to be, or they just gone too far and they're scared to go back to where it was because they don't want to lose the wood ducks, or I just think, God dog, I wish I would have won that lottery.
Yeah.
If I'd have won that lottery, we would just take all this, we would get it back to where, there's lots of areas down there that are great. The whole Samworth area.
Yeah, that's
beautiful, man. I mean, and the heritage that is behind all that.
Yeah.
I'm big into history stuff, and that was really cool. That was my first experience, kind of seeing the ins and outs of some of those plantations that are private, and we toured a few of them, and it's a beautiful area.
Well, they had, as you mentioned, you mentioned you called the name of one, so I'll focus in on that area, Samworth. So there's plantations to really all around it. And this year they had 4 weeks ago, you hunted over there 4 weeks ago, Inglis, in front of one of those plantations near Samworth. And I got the report from one of the property owners over there that they had 3,500 pintails that week. And that the flight was an hour and a half long of the pintails coming in. You know how many Samworth had? I mean, it was like this, right? I mean, they had them going over and then landed in privates.
Yeah.
But I mean, you couldn't have killed one on you could not have killed one on Samworth.
No, where I was hunting, literally within a half mile of Samworth, and the birds were doing what he was saying. They were leaving the places that you probably got to tour, flying right over the top of Samworth
and diving down.
Yeah. And we were where we were hunting. We were all trying to get a black belly whistler for the wall, and everybody in my group did except me, but then we got caught up in all the pintails that were coming in behind them, and it was just it was unbelievable. That's the most pintails I've ever seen.
Hour-and-a-half long flight of pintails coming into that plantation next to Samworth.
It's food.
It's food, right? It's food and rest. It's a simple solution. And there were so many, obviously that plantation in particular has got 500 plus acres of impoundments now on the PD River, right? So, but there are lots of little guys, and I'm considered a little guy in that pool for sure, who are building their own little impoundments now because they want a piece of that action, right? They're tired of sitting on the river or sitting on the piece of public and watching the ducks fly a mile over them and then land on the private. And so, I'm in the middle of building a 5-acre impoundment right now. Both properties on both sides of me have got 5 to 15-acre impoundments. We're doing the same thing on the PD River, and it's because of exactly what happened here. Different avenue, different lane, a little bit. Mismanagement, right?
Yeah.
Everybody used to expect the public land to draw the ducks. Nowadays, everybody's expecting the private landowner to draw the ducks. And, fundamental shift of thinking. And I think you get some of that public land. There's still some of those public water hunters that are a little bit irritated about it. But I'm like, guys, you got to adjust your way of thinking. The government is not going to do the job that the private landowners are doing. I wish they would. And I know that I'm not going to speak for you, but you can speak for yourself. But I know that I'm going to continue to push DNR towards managing WMAs the way they should be managed. But in the meantime, I'm going to build my own 5-acre impoundment because I can't continue to wait for DNR to do the job they should be doing on Samworth.
Those boys has been sitting on that river for 100 years, waiting on the ducks to come in, right? Yeah. There's been public hunters or whatever, out there, for 100 years, waiting on the plantations to shoot. Same thing that I get phone calls all the time. When are y'all shooting the ponds this week?
Right.
I'm going on the lake, and right. I want to be somewhere close to the lake, to where all the ponds are. So maybe I'll get a chance. And I get it. I grew up hunting that lake. I understand the whole thing. We used to wait for the ducks to get up off the refuge to move,
right.
Or people run around on the boats, stirring them up. That's when you would normally get some shooting.
Right.
That's how everybody, really all of us grew up in the state of South Carolina. You was hoping and praying that the ducks would come in off the private land.
Right.
You got your own spot. Now I got my own spot. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to make it so we can go out there and shoot some ducks, have a good time with our friends, and that's what it's all about. It's not necessarily about killing 30 of them. It's about having a good time, maybe shooting a few, and enjoying what God created for us all to enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a huge difference. And the old duck god in me may be saying this, but I think there's a huge difference in having a day full of killing and having a day full of opportunity, right?
Opportunity is awesome.
Opportunity is awesome.
That's the word that I like too. And going back to the question that you asked earlier about what should we be doing in Columbia and what should state government be doing, and to me, it's whatever can protect and create opportunity for the next generation in this state. And what I always think about is, you hear our dads talk about the ducks they shot in South Carolina 30, 40 years ago. The striped bass they caught 30, 40 years ago, and I don't pretend to understand the flyway and all that, but I start to think about our friends down the road, Andy and Stevie Pack at Pack's Landing. If you went and sat in the river in spring of 2008, you sit there all night, maybe catch catfish, you weren't going to catch a lot of striped bass. And I do think that that the state, through some concerted efforts and the law we've passed, have helped striped bass to come back, and they are back.
I agree
now.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody that argues with that doesn't know what they're talking about.
That's been a huge success.
And I think that's got a lot to do with measures that came out of Columbia just in the 10 years that you and I have been there, Senator. And I think it's the same way with ducks. And, the face of turkey hunting. The way that's changed over the last few years. And I think, there's a group in the State House that has that conservation-minded approach. And I think that a lot of us have young children. And our thought is, we want there to be opportunity for them, for the next generation that maybe is as good or better than what we've had.
Yeah, and you got to, right? I was having this debate with somebody earlier today, and not a topic that we're going to discuss here, but it relates. Okay, so we were having this discussion about how irritating, that might not be quite the right word, but how frustrating it is that we're going to be debating abortion again this year, okay, at the State House. That doesn't, I'm not, please don't take me out of context here. That's not saying that that's not an important debate. It is an important debate, okay? But it's frustrating that we haven't been able to advance the ball on abortion, whichever way you see that ball needing to be advanced. It's frustrating that that ball can't be advanced because there are purists on both sides of the aisle, right? And so if you want to see, let's just say you're from an abortion standpoint, you want to see it move in the direction of less more restrictions, okay? Then you would think, I need to figure out coalitions. I need to be able to put people together to figure out how to move it in the right direction. Well, there are purists that say, absolutely not. My moral purity demands that perfection or nothing. Okay? That's how some politics works. It's not good politics. It's bad politics. But that's how some politics work. The same thing applies in every realm of politics, including this realm we're talking about here. If you're not willing to get into the ring and mix it up and to start talking about just advancing the ball a little bit, then oftentimes you wind up nowhere, right? Which is a really bad place to be, and especially from a conservation standpoint. It's a really bad place to be because, you got DNR over here as an entity, and not just an entity. It has historical perspective. It's supposed to have professional perspectives, biologists, law enforcement. You got all these people that are, a statement of authority. And then you've got those of us, that are conservation minded, that are pushing back against the statement of authority. And then you got the constituents that need those resources, that want to utilize those resources, that do they push back against the legislature? Do they push back against DNR? DNR has always been the statement of authority. Why isn't this system working? It's very confusing. And at the end of the day, I think what you get is oftentimes you get this system that doesn't work because people expect DNR to be the statement of authority. And a lot of times, I'm here to tell you, a lot of times it doesn't work that way. They've had tremendous successes on a number of things, and I'm proud to say that because I've been a part of some of those successes. They've also had tremendous failures with some things, and I hate to say that. But it's true, and waterfowl has been one of those utter failures in South Carolina that we have got to improve upon. And if we don't say it, if we don't call it out, if we don't say it, we can't get better. We can't get better. But I do think.
To defend South Carolina, though, it's not all South Carolina, really. It's National Wildlife. Their refuges also have declined tremendously. Tremendously. I mean, they have so many regulations that they have to deal with. They can't plant Roundup Ready corn. They can't do certain management with moist soil units because of the water for the shorebirds and the frogs. And there's a lot to all of that has transpired over the last 40 years that has changed the whole habitat that our state used to bring to the table.
Well, Francis Marion National Forest is a great example of how, really good intentions have turned out really badly at the national level, right? I mean, really good intentions. Let's help propagate the red cockaded woodpecker.
Let's take care of that woodpecker.
Right. It's a great intention. Okay.
Let's run control burns during turkey nesting season.
They're running, and McElveen.
I knew that was coming.
McElveen knows exactly where I'm going with this, but we're gonna burn as many days, 365 days out of the year that we can burn right on through turkey nesting season. We're going to burn up the turkeys. The hell with the turkeys because we got to create habitat for the red-cockaded woodpecker. Everything is subordinate to the red-cockaded woodpecker. The deer, which are dropping fawns in the spring. The turkeys, which are dropping eggs in the spring. Any other ground nesting bird. The quail, which are dropping eggs in the spring.
How did South Carolina get there?
How did we get there? How did we get there? For the woodpecker.
Right.
Which is a great bird. I love the woodpecker.
Yeah.
But it's a woodpecker.
Woody.
I mean, how did we get here?
I drove through that damn place in June of last year to go to a MUSC for a meet, and I went the back way because
Evacuation route.
Yeah.
You went the evacuation route.
Right. Yeah.
and went through, smoked out, burnt up. I mean, they were in the middle of burning a fire in June.
In June, it's like a bomb shelter over there. I mean, you never know if they're going to be literally dropping what they call Dragon Balls from the sky. You know, it's like little napalm bombs. Yep. And it looks like a bombing range when you see them dropping those Dragon Balls out of the helicopters. And you're like, holy crap, are they going to drop one of these things on me? Yeah. And in June, I mean, they're killing everything to the detriment of, to the detriment of all wildlife for the purpose of the woodpecker. Now, I just don't get it. I don't know if I ever will get it, but I can tell you, till the day I have a breath, I no longer have a breath in my body, I will be fighting that kind of ridiculousness.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, because you're big on prescribed burns. Anybody that's read your website, by the way, featherhornfarms.com.
Yep. You
can go check it out, but you were big on prescribed fires because also you offer more than just duck hunting. You do a lot of quail hunting here.
We do a lot of quail hunting, and that is one of my favorite things to do is quail hunt. But I also like great habitat, and you got to have control burns with great habitat. You got to. It's part of natural. It's part of first generation, second generation, successional stages of your plant growth. It's part of making great habitat for sure. You got to have it. Turkeys, quail, rabbits, they all benefit. Deer, I mean, it all benefits, but you do it at the right time. You don't do thousands of acres at once and think that's okay. That's not okay.
Yeah, you do small blocks, and you do them now, right?
Yeah.
Now
to February, and then cut it off.
Right. I mean, we've been burning dead ahead for the last 2 weeks at my place, trying to get them ahead. When we had a dry day and the humidity was right and the wind was right, anytime from December to February, if you can find those days, you burn.
Yeah.
And you get it done, because if you don't get it done by the time March rolls around, you're done.
It's over.
You're supposed to be done.
Yep.
You're not supposed to burn up your turkeys.
No.
I mean, anybody with common sense knows that. But we don't have a lot of common sense anymore.
No. So
Who calls the shots? Who calls the shots? I mean, I guess that's
Forestry.
Yeah.
I mean, well, look. I mean,
that's
state
U.S.
Forestry or U.S. Forestry?
No. So
you can blame the federal government on that one. Not.
Yeah. Well, so
I'm not looking for blame. Just
so
clarification.
The Forestry Commission will tell you, and they're good for the most part. They'll tell you it's okay to run some burns in the summertime if you're trying to get rid of, like bay trees, for instance. You got a big bay, and I get that.
Yeah, tall timbers, they are big on those summertime burns, and I get it too. Yes, but not 1,000 acres.
But not 1,000 acres, right? You do little small blocks where animals can escape, right? If you have to burn up a bay, then that's what you do, okay? But the federal government, totally different animal. They have these prescribed fire manuals, and the prescribed fire manual says what you and I actually believe, but the problem is they haven't followed those prescriptions in 50 years. I mean, the prescriptions mean nothing anymore. I mean, there are dozens of lawyers poring over these prescriptions right now, trying to figure out why they don't pay attention to any of these things. And the bottom line is this: they make more money off of managing for the red cockaded woodpecker than they do for anything else. That's the bottom line. There is nobody at the federal government anymore that cares about you and me, nor our ability to hunt and kill an animal within the forest.
There's no way that the cockaded woodpecker brings in as much revenue as the deer, the quail, the turkeys, the ducks. There's no way.
There's no way.
Nope.
You wouldn't think, right? No. But it brings in just enough money where they can say no more hunting.
Yeah.
Right. Now, they would never say that.
Right.
Right. But that's what they're doing. It's the same.
No more fishing.
It's the same thing.
No more fishing. You may hit a whale out there.
You might hit a whale. So, no, literally, okay? 10-mile-an-hour speed limit out to 100 miles so that you don't hit a whale, a northern right whale.
Yep.
I did the math on this, Inglis. What's the statistic? 1 in a million chance that you're going to see a whale. You know what the chance is you're going to see a UFO? 1 in 40. 1 in 40.
1 in 40.
that you're going to see a UFO. Okay? 1 in a million that you're going to see a northern right whale. So do you think maybe we should shut down commercial airlines because you might get hit by a UFO? I mean, I think you should, right? I mean, it makes a lot more sense statistically to shut down commercial airlines than it does to shut down a boat running offshore.
Yeah.
I was on our local ABC affiliate 2 weeks ago during New Year's Eve week for a story on the whale deal. And I used that after the senator had shared it with me. I used it, and people were texting me like, I can't believe you said it. But I said, don't you think we should slow down the airplanes or shut down the flights? I mean, more people report UFOs every day than they do whales.
Yeah, by tenfold. Well, anyway, we've gotten way off topic, which is
No, we haven't. We're hanging
We're on
out.
to whales. We go from ducks to whales.
We're hanging out at a duck lodge. I mean,
There's lots of shit.
like
stuff that could go.
Senator and I were talking earlier, we don't care about the hunting part. That part out there by the fire and by the grill, that's what's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You're right. Let me say this though. If Jimmy grew up in Sumter, surrounding areas, just like I did, and like a couple of guys who were sitting here with us also, Marion Moses, who turns out was in my wedding and Jimmy's wedding, and who kind of got me involved here, and also Camden James is sitting here, who's involved out here.
Land cam.
If y'all want to do a really good podcast, what you would do is get Camden and some of his cousins and talk to them about some of their hog hunts. And that,
Oh, boy.
that's some exciting
That's
stuff.
a good time.
Different topic for a different day. But I think if people who knew Jimmy and hadn't been here came here, I think they'd be blown away by what they see and what he's putting together here. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And that's on the website, and he's been talking about it. But what he doesn't talk about is things that he's not looking for credit for, but some amazing things that go on here. One of them is a great youth sporting clays program.
Thank you. Yeah.
Featherhorn Young Guns.
I've heard about this, so
Appreciate that.
tell me
Well,
about that.
And really, also, this is a military community. You hear me talk about it a lot in the Senate. I mean, we have Shaw Air Force Base in close proximity. McIntyre right down the road. I mean, and it's such a huge part of our community and the veterans that live here. He does a really great Wounded Warrior type weekend. It doesn't look for recognition, but it's something he does here. And one of the first times I came here was for kind of the reception he does and kind of the night he does for those veterans who have been hurt serving our country. It's
All Purple Heart.
It's a moving experience. And so he doesn't talk about that. He doesn't brag about it, but it's something that goes on here that's really special,
So were you in the military, Jimmy?
No, I was not.
All right, because I heard you say all Purple Heart, which is it distinguishes a lot of these, right?
So I've got a lot of good friends that were in the military. My dad was in the Army, but I have a real close friend, Chad Artis, which I grew up with. Thomas knows, but he was in the military. Spent 30 years in the military, and anyway, we tried to come up with a. I'm just a old redneck boy trying to give back a little bit, so I thought, all right, so let's have some of these guys out, and we'll take them hunting. Well, that's gone to. We've done 10 years now. Now we go through the Wounded Bonfire program. I think Warrior Bonfire program. It's a nonprofit out of Mississippi. They vet all the guys, but they're all Purple Heart, Bronze Star, badasses. That's what they are. I mean, they put their life on the line every day for us to come enjoy the great outdoors. And come hunting. Yeah, that's what. So we give them a good 4 or 5 days here at the farm, showing them what low country hunting is like. What kind of we grew up. We go to the skinning shed. We clean the deer. It's kind of old school, and we do a lot that we try to do for those guys. I can tell you this. I think we saved somebody's life this year. I can't say that I've done that every year, or we have done that every year, but I think me and Chad have done a pretty good job doing that, giving back a little bit, and those guys deserve it. I mean, I've heard some horror stories of living the life as a Marine on the front lines, and thank God they did it and I didn't.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you do that. Quite a few good organizations out there, and we've been involved in a couple of those as well. Inglis and I have taken a couple of these Wounded Warriors, and you always get more out of it than you give, I feel like.
I had a young guy. Now the war's kind of over, so to speak, and we get a lot of older guys, and I say older, 35 to 45.
Yeah.
That's really where our age group has gone. Where it used to be 20 to 25.
Right.
You know, you had a bunch of young guys, and I had a young guy in here, and he was about 25, 30 years old, and he went to work. He ran in the Humvees, ran around the base, making sure there wasn't nothing going on or whatever. But he got in the Humvee on a Monday morning. He went around to do his patrol. He got blew up by IED. He came back. He survived. Everybody survived. He got on protocol for a week, concussion or whatever, and next Monday he had to go back to work. Did the same lap. Got blown up again. This time he lost one of his buddies. He was okay. Had nothing wrong with him. Went back to the infirmary. 1 week he's out. Guess what happened that next Monday?
No way.
He had to go back on patrol. He got blew up again. He was the only one to survive this time.
Jeez.
Yeah. So you imagine that. So when I was 18, I went to college, went and got me a job, all that stuff. That joker he signed up to go to work. That's what he did. He wanted a job when he got out of college, and the military was his calling, and that's what he did. But you imagine going to work 3 weeks in a row and getting blown up. And then coming back for again?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That guy.
That is crazy.
That guy needs whatever to survive for the rest of his life. He gave everything he had, you know?
Yeah, that's incredible.
That is. You hear, I take a group of them fishing, guys from Special Forces. These aren't wounded guys. They're still active duty. And I've heard some incredible stories from some of them they get injured.
Yeah.
They spend their couple weeks recovery, and they're back out there with them.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to go to Africa with them.
Yeah.
He leaves in June for 8 months.
Going to Africa.
Yeah, the war
He's in the Army.
The war has moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, the war is now in Africa. The federal government, I don't know if it's the federal government or the current administration or whoever it is, but they wanted the war to end in the Middle East. Everybody wanted the war to end in the Middle East. That's not uncommon. But what they didn't tell you was it just moved south, and it is the war against Islamic terrorism is raging in Africa right now. Everywhere from the Horn of Africa all the way down. I mean, there was just a giant terrorist attack in Congo. So I mean, the terrorists have really spread their wings and have migrated even into southern Africa now, which that's a big problem.
This is over my pay grade.
Yeah.
It's a big.
Some of the guys that I took fishing actually from Special Forces were over there. They got attacked. They were 3 of them got killed, but that's 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When they had that attack on the outpost, they were all out there. That was the guys I took fishing, but the guys I took fishing were the ones that were back at the post. They were out at the whatever you call, I don't know what you. Anyway, they were out at the post and they were back at base training the soldiers from that country,
The local.
and they got attacked and. Three
Yeah.
of them lost their lives, but nobody really heard about it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, well, you just don't. I mean, Africa it's always been like the forgotten place, but we have bases there. We have bases there. We have outposts there. We have spike camps there, which you never really hear about. And there's quite a bit of fighting there. And we have strategic. I'm way off topic on the podcast, but we have strategic posts in Africa.
there went a squirrel.
Yeah, right. We have real strategic posts in Africa, but I'm telling you, it all comes back to one thing. Right? There is Islamic terrorism spreading through Africa at a rampant pace, and that's scary. But the strategic outposts, posts, bases in Africa are all about one thing, and that's about China. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about China's attempt at world dominance. And anywhere that you see a major port, really across the world, but especially in Africa right now, China is just super building around it. And so obviously, Allied forces, U.S. forces are interested in being there if China wants to be there. So anyway, way off topic. You and I, Senator McElveen, have done a few outdoor activities together over the years. We have flounder gigged together. We've caught a few alligators together, as I recall. We have offshore fished together. And now we're going to duck hunt together. So I got to ask you.
This is y'all's first time duck hunting together?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Unless,
Any kind of hunting, I think.
unless it's been a long. Did we turkey hunt together one time?
I don't think we ever have. No.
Gigging is hunting.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not
right.
fishing.
Yeah, you're right.
It falls under the wrong category. I'm not saying that it's wrong or indifferent, but it's not fishing. It's hunting.
I love flounder gigging though.
I know.
You know, and there's
I'm not against it.
Kevin, he sounds like.
But what I'm saying is
Kevin, he
it's
sounds
not
very-
fishing. I'm sorry.
I agree.
not.
It's not.
Kevin, he sounds like he
If
doesn't.
I
he
go
doesn't
out
know
on
what flounder gigging is.
Santee and get on the bow of a boat with lights all over it, with a bow in my hand, with a Matthews bow, and I'm shooting gar, am I going to win some fishing award? No, I'm hunting.
Kevin, he's getting kind of worked up on flounder gigging right
He's
now.
getting.
No, I'm not getting worked up. I just think
You don't like it, do you,
it's
Cap?
not. I
You don't like
have
it, do you?
no problem
You
with
don't like
it.
it.
I can see his ears
It's
getting
not
red.
classified as fishing. It's hunting.
The purist.
He's a
All right,
purist.
hang on. So if I get up on the flats chasing a redfish, and I'm stalking this redfish,
Yeah.
and I guess because I'm casting a rod at it, it might be fishing, but I still think of that as hunting
It's
because I am
it's a
visually
combination.
chasing this fish, waiting for that tail to just turn upside down, and I don't know. But
so if you're
Wait, maybe it's just we're in person.
and I'm not picking on gigging.
Well, maybe
I'm
we're just in
saying-
person right now, but I've heard you and Senator Goldfinch talk about his spearfishing exploits, but you seem to be getting way more animated about the gigging than you do the spearfishing.
I just think it should be classified as hunting.
Yeah, okay. I understand I think I understand your perspective. Your perspective is not that it's bad.
And I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, there's
I don't think it's bad at all. I got 2 gigs in my garage and 2 sets of lights.
there's a great meme that I sent to my wife earlier, and it goes something like this: I apologize for the mean, hurtful, and very accurate things that I said.
Man, I wish I could get one of those from my wife.
No. I want to clarify this because I am not against gigging, and I would do it in a heartbeat if the senator invited me to go. My other buddies, they won't invite me because they don't think that I care much for it. But it's not that. I just think it should be called hunting and not fishing.
No, you've ruined your chance now. You'll never go gigging. It's over.
It's over. You're not going with them.
You're not going with me. It's over.
Oh well.
So when I think the last time we gigged, we actually caught an alligator too. Was it by accident?
I think that was 2 times.
Hey,
ago.
did you have a
2
tag?
times ago?
Did y'all have a tag?
Well, he got in the way.
Uh.
He got in the way.
He tried to attack.
It was a very dangerous alligator, okay, and he needed to be moved out of the way for his safety
Yes.
because it was a very narrow creek, and we could have run him over with the outboard motor. So I very carefully, with my gentle hands, picked him up and moved him out of the way.
That's true.
It was thoughtful.
Yep.
It was a thoughtful thing, and
It was awful nice of you guys.
It was. We got a picture as we moved him out of the way of the outboard motor.
True conservationist.
True
Listen,
conservationist.
I had to call. So I had an alligator in my neighborhood. This alligator comes out the pond in my backyard, goes into the neighborhood behind me, and the neighbors are going crazy. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I call him, and I say, who should I call? And he said, you've called the right man. He said, don't call anybody else. I'll be there. Well, the sheriff's department was there, and here he comes driving up with his kids in the truck. He gets out the truck, and he starts telling them all, y'all get back.
I got it.
He gets under this Honda Accord or whatever it was. This alligator's under this car. He gets under it with this alligator, poking at it to get it out. He finally gets it to run out. It runs over under this house, and then he corners it at the house. And then with all these armed policemen standing around him, he says, back up, I got it. And he jumped on back of this alligator and tied it up, strapped it up, and then picked it up by himself and carried it all the way to the back of his truck and threw it in the truck.
Did a little gator wrestling.
Y'all, I put this alligator in the back of my truck, like Inglis said.
And they were all like, who's this alligator wrestler guy? I was like, that's your senator.
So I put this alligator in the back of my
Got
truck.
my vote.
I was like, that's your senator.
So I throw him in the back of my truck, and I'm driving him to the river. I'm going to take him somewhere else and dump him. And the river is in my neighborhood. Okay, so I pull in my neighborhood, and I figured I was pull up to my house and get a drink because I was thirsty from fighting the alligator. It was hot. So I pulled up in my cul-de-sac, and here comes my neighbor. She's my wife's friend. I'm going to call her name. Her name's Christine.
Yep.
Sweet young woman, and she's walking down the street towards me, and I'm passing her in my truck, and I stopped, and I said, "Hey, Christine," I said, "I got something in the back of the truck. Come look. And I stood up on my tire and reached in the back of the truck, and as soon as she put her head down to look over the bed, I reached in and smacked the side of the gator, and he roared up like this and said, "Rah!" She looked like Jackie Warner Kersey hopping across my neighbor. I've never seen anybody jump that far in my life. And hollering and screaming. She ran from my truck to my house in about 2.3 seconds. She didn't talk to me for a week.
Good stuff.
Which was excellent, by the way.
But I'll tell you, going back to the flounder gigging, brought back a lot of old memories, and it's funny because we get here tonight, and Captain E hadn't met you till tonight, but I could hear you out there making connections, and people you knew, Jimmy, and I didn't realize that, and then I hear Senator making connections out there. That's the great thing about South Carolina. You got to be careful who you talk about because everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody.
There's some degree of separation, and so I think back. My grandfather was a guy named Bert Watson. Jimmy, you knew him. I live in his house now, but my love of the outdoors probably comes from him more than anybody else. And I can remember as a kid, our cousin, my granddad's first cousin, was a guy named Frank McGill, who was in the South Carolina Senate.
Absolutely.
His son Yancey McGill, my cousin, I was in his suite for the first few years I was there. You served with him too.
I know Yancey, yeah.
And so back then, the McGills had a house at Debbie Dew way back when, and they would always give my grandparents, their cousins a few weeks, and so we'd go in the North Inlet and we'd flounder gig. And I remember, so many nights mosquitoes would be out, and my granddad would have that, bow line tied around his waist with the John boat. My grandmother would be sitting in the back. We have the pole with the incandescent light on it with the collar. Couldn't put it in the water back then because it was short out.
Right.
And I just have so many good memories about that. But after he died, I really didn't go to the North Inlet for years till a senator here took me. And it's just, just amazing to be able to get back out there and to do that again a couple times here in the last few years with a lot of success, Yeah. At the risk of inflating his ego, I'll say the guy knows how to catch things. Oh. I understand he knows how to kill them too.
And kill them.
I try.
Yeah.
I try.
He's got it figured out.
Just ask his hunting partner that goes to Colorado.
Well, that's what I heard. I heard that episode. So that 8th elk in Colorado, 7th or 8th.
I think it's 9.
And this one you ripped out from one of your partners to hear Captain E tell it a few weeks ago.
No, I don't know if I'd say that.
I told you I'm an avid listener. Yeah.
I didn't rip it out from under. I didn't rip it out. I've killed, I think it's 9 bull elk now.
He ripped it out.
With a bow?
I've killed 6 with a bow.
Okay.
I've killed 6 with a bow, and I told Inglis earlier, I think I'm going in the opposite direction of mature hunter. Like, I've gotten to a point now where I don't care about killing another one with a bow. I really just want to kill them with a rifle now. But I don't want to shoot them from 1,000 yards. I want to kill them in bow distance. I want to stalk them as if I'm bow hunting.
You just don't want to take the chance.
Well, see, the thing is, after 9 of them, I've shot a few that I haven't recovered. So that would have been 10, 11, 12. I've also wounded a few that I ended up having to kill on the trail. And I'm not real interested in improving my archery game. I'm interested in archery hunting with a rifle.
Yeah.
I want to knock them down, and I don't want to have to chase them.
I get it.
It's just like I respect an elk so much. I'm a turkey hunting fanatic, okay? And elk hunting is just turkey hunting on steroids. That's all it is. It's turkey hunting on steroids, in the Rocky Mountains. And I respect that animal so much that I don't want to have to chase it 2 miles, with a blood trail that runs out when it starts raining. That is like, if you've ever lost a big buck, okay, imagine the pain of that times 100. Because not only have you paid for yourself a plane ticket, you hiked your ass off, 5, 10, 15 miles into the backcountry. You've been camping for a week around a fire. You've been eating off gummy bears and peanut butter, and you brought yourself just within distance of that.
Colorado, what kind of gummy bears y'all eating?
That was my next thing.
Hair bows.
That was my next thing.
You got yourself just within shooting distance. You close the deal. You pull the trigger, and then there goes that elk. He runs off, and you never find him. And it's just like, it's heartbreaking. And so the last three or four I killed with a 3.75, and it said right in its tracks. I mean, it just dropped right in its tracks. And I felt just as much joy and elation as I did, when I killed third biggest in Colorado with a bow. Just as much joy as killing that one with a bow, that giant bull elk with a bow from 9 yards, as killing one with a rifle from 20.
I get it.
So anyway, I don't know. It might just be me, but I love elk hunting. It's in my blood. I love mule deer hunting too. Mountain hunting is a little different.
I'd like to do some mule deer hunting.
I love it. Killed
Ever since we talked about it on the podcast, and he's told me a lot about the hunting part of it. Every time I see a television show, mule deer hunting, every single one of them gets up, they run, they stop, they turn around and look, and then they run again. They do not keep running. And he was right.
In South Carolina, if the white-tailed deer gets up and he sees you, what do?
They run.
They're gone.
Why is that?
They're
A
gone.
bunch of rednecks around here, we kill stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what else. I seriously, I believe that a whitetail has a much more vigorous, strong nervous system than a mule deer does. I believe you could kill a 300-pound mule deer with a 2.23. I really honestly believe that if it's a well-placed shot. I mean, you could do that with a whitetail too, obviously, if you hit him right in the heart or in the brain. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
Your usual shot, if you're shooting a 270 or a bow, what does the whitetail do? He runs 50, 100, 150 yards and drops, right? I've never seen a mule deer, even poorly shot mule deer, run more than about 5 yards. Like, They take one step and they fall over dead. It's like, what the hell's the difference? Why?
Yeah.
This is a 300-pound animal that'll run straight up a 30-degree incline in the snow, living in the harshest conditions you can imagine, the toughest animal that you can imagine, and you shoot him with a pea shooter and the thing falls over dead. Like, you go, boo, and he'll fall over dead. What is that? I mean, it's odd, but I love them. I mean, they're such cool, incredible animals, and when you see them in person, it just looks like, looks like a giant. And sometimes they are giant. That's the great thing about it. We're used to seeing here in South Carolina, you're used to seeing, you see a 140-inch buck, and that's a giant buck.
Yep.
So when you go out, Colorado, Montana, wherever, and you see a 180-inch mule deer, you say, holy crap, and it's 300 pounds. That's a huge deer. And then the next one you see is a 200-inch buck, and it gives you a little perspective. You're like, that deer's 20 inches bigger than the last deer.
Yeah.
They're funny looking, though. They look like a submarine when they get big. They do. They look like a dang submarine.
Yeah, I love them. And it's a totally different form of hunting than elk. You would think it's mountain hunting, it's a deer-ish, totally different form of hunting mule deer than it is from elk. Totally different.
Well, and the funny thing is that the mule deer you shot recently, I showed I live vicariously through some of your exploits. But I showed a friend of mine around here the photo that you sent me of the mule deer, and they literally argued with me that was not a mule deer. It was actually
elk.
elk.
No,
I had the same argument.
Yeah.
That picture, the one picture of him sideways with it,
Yeah, that's the one
it
I'm talking
did.
about.
I know. And they were all like, it's an elk. I'm like, nope, it's a mule. Look at it. It's a mule deer.
Yeah, it's a mule deer. He had a rack that looked a little bit like an elk. He did. But I mean, it's a mule. It's a 300-pound animal. It's clearly a mule deer. But they are.
I'm sitting here trying to think how you can not figure that out.
Well, I'll show you the picture that they're referencing, and the rack looks a little bit, but it's clearly not. It's
And once you see it like straight on, you realize it's definitely a deer. It's not.
Yeah, from
it's not-
straight on, you can definitely, there's no question.
well, right. I mean, so there's the picture from a forward angle, and you can tell that's obviously a mule deer, right? All right.
Yep.
So from a different angle, our viewers obviously can't tell you, but from this angle,
This one.
yeah, that one right there.
Looks like a mule deer, man.
It looks like a mule deer, but I can tell where somebody that didn't know what they were looking at would say that rack looks a little bit like an elk rack.
Yeah, I was looking at the face
But
color.
you show them the ears. Really is how you can tell it's obviously a deer, not and not an elk, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, Matt. To me, I've been looking at it my whole life, so it's a deer, right? But I mean, I could see like if you
Did you get that one, Senator?
if you
He's been looking at him
We'll
his
just
whole
agree it's a
life.
deer, move on, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
You're
cover
a
up
bird hunter, right, Thomas?
yeah.
Birds, feathers.
feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you better get on the list. Get on. You got a great guide to go with you.
He might shoot it.
He might shoot it. You just got to make sure you get a year that he doesn't get a tag.
Yeah, he's the one that kind of elbows you out of the way. Let me get to the shot.
I
No.
shoot on two.
He's Rambo.
Oh, shoot on two.
He'll be the one. He'll be the one that like you walk up and you there he is, and you turn around and you go, "Where's Steven?"
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, from a half mile away, ka-tow, and you look, and there's that one you were looking at.
Dead.
I've had it.
That's what his hunting partner told me.
I've had a tendency to do that, but you know, my hunting partner also doesn't open his eyes, obviously, and look around.
Well, he's too busy bugling.
Yeah, he is. Poor Rick. Poor Rick. We've got this buddy.
We love Rick. Rick's going to be my guest host some while he's gone. That's going to be his way to get back at Steven. When Steven's over serving the country, Rick's going to come sit in the show with me and guest host, and so we can give Steven a hard time.
This is the same Rick from Columbia, Blythewood.
Yep.
Yeah, he went flounder gigging with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Rick.
Is he all right, Thomas?
Yeah, he's good guy.
Good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He learned to elk hunt vicariously through YouTube and TV and podcasts, right? And I mean, I've killed a few elk in my time.
That's how half the kids in our state learn.
The duck hunt.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like,
And I wanted to get to that here in a little bit, but I don't know if we're going to have time. But I did want to talk about that and duck hunting. But keep going. Let's talk. Keep going.
So you know, there's things that like he'll say that I think, well, that doesn't translate into the real. Like I can hear somebody on a podcast saying that, right? Because you got to fill space, but that doesn't really translate into the real world. And so he's taken up this approach that you just bugle your ass off the entire time. Right,
Like an overcall on a turkey.
yeah, just like overcalling a turkey.
Oh, it works really
it's
good.
100%. It's 100% overcalling a turkey, but he just bugles his ass off the whole time. And his theory is that this riles him up. You know, like it gets them all, all froggy and frothy, and they're all ruddy, and they just want to come in, and you just bugle them right to your face. And this is his theory. And so he just bugles his ass off the whole time you're out there. And so eventually you separate from him because you can't stand the bugling anymore. Right? And of course, the last time this happened, we separate, and I shoot a big bull elk. And he's, like literally the bull runs. I think the bull's running from him in the bugling. The bull runs past him, like probably less than 100 yards, like runs past him up the hillside that he's sitting on, and I'm sitting on the adjacent hillside watching this bull. Like, I got my rifle. I'm on the bull, and I know that he's in the direction of Rick because I saw Rick walk into the hillside and sit down.
And you heard him.
Right. And I obviously could hear him. So I got my rifle on him, and I can't shoot right now because he's walking right past Rick. And then he gets up on the hillside. I'm like, yeah, that's probably pretty safe right there. He can't be in that direction. I'm shooting up against a hillside. Bam! Bull falls down the hill. I walk over to the hill. Rick walks out from the point. Where'd that bull come from? I said, he ran right past you. There's his footprints right there. He ran right past you. That bull didn't come past me. I said, Rick, there's his footprints right there. Where were you sitting? Right there. There's his footprints right there. That bull didn't come past me. You're a liar.
Right by him.
Right by him.
He ended up admitting that that's what happened. Rick did.
Oh, he won't admit it to me. He might admit it to you. He won't admit it to me.
Come on, Rick.
Poor Rick.
Poor Rick.
Yeah, poor Rick.
Poor Rick.
Poor Rick.
Yeah, he's actually been drawn how many times? He's
had at least 5 or 6 tags now, and he hadn't closed the deal yet. Well, he's just bugling his ass off.
But you're also under the belief when you get the opportunity, your mindset changes because you're willing to take a shot that you may have to follow it up with another shot, but you're going to take the opportunity. And I don't want to say that I know somebody's going to be listening like, oh, a sky buster.
No,
But
no. I do.
When you're
think-
shooting the gun that you're shooting, you know what your gun's going to do.
Well, like I said, I think it's the last 3 or 4 elk I've killed. I've shot with a 375. Okay, and so if there's a bush between me and the elk, I'm shooting through the bush. Right?
You ought to be good.
All right, like I can thread the needle pretty small, and if I'm off by an inch and it hits a bush, it's going through the bush, and it's going through the limb, and it's going through the elk. So I just don't, I take away by shooting bigger caliber guns on bigger bodied animals. I think you take away that margin of error that you would have if you were, trying to shoot one with a 270 or a 308. You could kill an elk with a 270 or a 308. But there's a margin of error there, right? Like, why use that margin of error? I just prefer big caliber guns because I want to just lay them down.
Dead.
Less work.
Dead. Yeah, I want to just lay them
RT.
down.
You're already going to have enough work when you're dragging that son of a gun out of there.
Oh, my gosh. I've about killed myself.
Well, that's why in South Carolina we don't have to worry about elk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, though.
There was one a few years ago that wandered off from that herd in North Carolina there, right? In Pickens County had
Yeah.
I think it was Pickens County. Yeah. We had
They
a
have
couple.
That stuff up in, was it North Carolina that started at? Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, they had a big herd in Kentucky. They have a big herd in North Carolina now. I know Banner Elk and Boone and that crowd have got a big herd. Well, you saw them.
Yeah, I saw them.
You saw them coming down the Blue Ridge Parkway this year, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got a big herd.
They are awesome.
I don't think it'll be. Kentucky's got a tag system now.
Yep.
I think they only issue
Pennsylvania.
a dozen.
Pennsylvania.
Arkansas's got a tag system. I think Tennessee's got a tag system, or they're about to have one. It's coming. North Carolina won't be long, and they'll have a tag system for elk. I guarantee. Now, it'll start off with 3 tags, and then it'll be 10 tags.
Right.
It's not going to
It'd be like us and Bears, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, it ain't going to be like 100,000 tags or anything, but we're going to have a tag system in North Carolina pretty soon, I bet.
Bears here have been incredible the last couple of years.
Y'all have a lot of bears here?
No.
I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to ask.
No.
You have bears on your farm?
I think they're around. I've seen some on camera, not where I hunt, but one day, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was sitting under a tree turkey hunting, and when the sun came up and I got up, I could stand up and see where the bear had been raking a tree.
Ooh.
Made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
So we had I had a buddy of mine that was here from Georgia turkey hunting, and he was sitting down by the tree. He was calling at a turkey. Turkey didn't come. Anyway, he just sat there. He said I sat there for an hour just waiting to see what the turkey was going to do, and he said something came up behind him walking, and he said he turned and moved to look and see what it was. And as soon as he turned, he heard woof, just like that, and then something ran away from him. He don't know what it was, but he swears it was a
bear.
A bear. Now, we've had them in Manning. They were running up downtown Manning before. So I'm not saying they're not here. I just have not seen one on our farm.
I can remember when I was probably in high school, I had an uncle that told my grandfather that he'd seen a bear in the watery swamp.
Yeah.
And I think my granddad asked me how much beer he had to drink that night. I mean, he probably did see one. And in Camden, I mean, if you got a river running through you, you're probably going to have a bear.
True.
Wander along at some point in time. I mean,
He's probably hanging out with Lizard Man.
Yeah, we've got
Lee County.
I mean,
That's right, other county.
Lizard Man doesn't leave Lee County.
No.
We definitely have pockets of them where we are in Horry and Georgetown County. Like it's weird because my farm on Gunner's Island was only about 4 miles from my dad's farm in Ainer, and we had plenty of bears on Gunner's Island. My dad's never had a bear on his farm 4 miles away. Same thing in Georgetown. I mean, I've got that farm on the PD River in Georgetown, and we've got tons of bears. I mean, I have them on camera every night. But you cross 701 and they don't have any. So it's weird the way the bears have pockets along the coast. But
they had some bears on Milford Plantation up there. Camden is a member over there, and they've had bears on the camera over there. I forgot about that. That was a couple years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And then when you go to upstate, they're a lot more numerous up in the Greenville area up there, right?
They've gotten numerous enough in our game zone, which is along the coast. For those of you who are listening, four,
yep.
Where there's an open permit system. You can get a tag. Anybody can get a tag, but then they close the tag system whenever the quota's been met. And I think the quota this year is like in the 30s. I don't know if you remember or not.
I can't remember.
I think it's 35 or 38 or something like that is the quota system. And the quota gets met usually on day one. And then it's done. It's closed. But, I mean, the tag's only $25. So there's definitely pockets of bears along the coast of South Carolina for sure. I'm sure they'll make their way here and more populations as time moves on. It's just like coyotes, it just took them time to sort of fill in all the holes, and now they're everywhere.
Let's go back to the shooting team real quick. I know we're
everything to
kinda running out of
DNR.
time.
Yeah, that's kind of everything to DNR. Their bid process and their tag system, how it fills up so quick. The kids shooting team, we shoot some of the DNR stuff also, and that thing will fill up with 700 kids in 4 minutes.
That's crazy.
4 minutes is unreal.
Will you explain all that? I mean, you started from a place where you understand what you're talking about, but I don't quite understand. So back up a little bit.
Okay, about the DNR?
Yeah, well, about what you're talking about there with the kids and the 700.
With the shooting.
The kids shooting team, there's 3 organizations that we shoot in, SCYSF, which is all sporting clays. I sit on the advisory board with them. Great organization, and they done a fabulous job on bringing kids, not just the shooting part of it, but the safety, the gun rights part of it. I mean, it's top-notch organization. Then you have the DNR organization. They have a skeet tournament, trap tournament, sporting clays tournament. It's a free tournament. High schools, club teams, they all participate in it. It's great great tournaments that they do. That's part of the Governor's Cup point system. It's similar to the fishing Governor's Cup, but it's for shooting. Hopefully our kids will be there this year visiting you guys in the State House. I don't know yet, but we'll see. Matter of fact, this weekend is the trap portion of that. It's a 3-leg event, skeet, trap, and sporting clays, and the trap is this weekend qualifying.
So the winners get to come to the State House.
Correct.
Okay.
Whoever wins the Governor's Cup points.
Right.
For the last few years, Mid-Carolina has won. That's like our arch rival. It seems like they've edged us out by a couple targets for the last few years. But hopefully, Capt E, we're going to be there this year.
Have you got a fair mix of girls and male and female on the team?
We do. We have 6 girls, and the rest are boys, all age groups. Our team is kind of stacked between the 7th and, let's say, the 10th and 11th grade. We only have 1 senior this year. And it's the kids, man. We have some that just love to shoot, and they put in the time, they put in the work, they put in the effort. And our team is, we've got 9 coaches that are NSCA qualified instructors, or SCTP. That's the 3rd organization that I didn't get a chance to say that we shoot for. SCTP is a national organization, great organization that promotes skeet, trap, sporting clays. They're big into national recognition for the kids. Kids from all over the country go to those national tournaments. It's held in Ohio. We plan to send a good many kids this year. We've had kids compete there for the last few years, and I really believe that our team, little old team in South Carolina, has a chance to win a national championship there one year. Hopefully.
That's great.
Yeah.
Some of these kids going on to college.
Yeah, we've had 3 or 4 shoot in college. Matthew Blankenship shoots at Linwood University. We have Dalen Mon. He shoots at University of Tennessee, Martinsville. We have Mary Claire, my daughter. She shoots at Clemson.
Good girl.
I'm sure I'm missing somebody here, but we have a good many kids that have the opportunity to go shoot in college, full ride opportunities that are out there, and then you have some of the bigger schools that are just club teams, but have a lot of support from 4-H, from the SCTP scholarships, SCYSF scholarships, DNR scholarships. It's a very it's a growing sport. I mean, the kids, there's
That's
a lot
great.
of kids, man.
Can you imagine going to college on a full ride scholarship for shooting ski?
Yes,
I mean, that's your job in college is to shoot ski. I mean, that's amazing. That's
I think
awesome.
it'd be pretty awesome.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
How about bass fishing?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's similar, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing something you love. It's not like I wouldn't think that you wouldn't have to treat it like a job, like a lot of other
to buy the
sports.
shells. I imagine since Matthew Blankenship's been in college, the shells probably more than the tuition.
Yeah.
I said the shells probably cost more than the tuition the last few years.
I was going to ask that. Who in y'all's team? Who pays for all the expenses? Because that gets expensive.
So
right?
We fundraisers.
We do some fundraisers. We do our sporting clay shoot every year around September, October. It's called the Duck Cup. We started that thing as a fundraiser for the kids shooting team. Now it's grown. We've 150, 200 people shooting in those tournaments. That you not only bring in new kids to get involved, not just with our team, but with just shooting sports in general. And then you have a lot of companies that want to bring guests and they shoot in it and then support the kids. And it's awesome to have a lot of friends, family to support the kids. And we got some of the greatest group of kids, man. They really like to shoot and they really like to compete. And they learn so many other things, discipline throughout the shooting sports, deal.
So I had this neighbor when I lived in Allendale. We lived so in order for you to understand what it looked like, we lived on the waterway and it overlooked Bulls Bay and then Bull Island. So plenty of places to shoot right out of our backyard. My next door neighbor was a former Olympic gold medalist skeet shooter. His name was Ed Cox. I don't know if you ever heard of Ed Cox or not, but he would have been in the Olympics back in the 80s, I guess, 90s. I don't know. The guy was 70 years old then, and that was 15, 20 years ago. So anyway, incredible shooter still, and he had a fairly simple skeet shooting operation set up behind his house, and he'd launch skeet out into the waterway into the marsh, and he'd shoot just about every day. And I got to a point shooting with him, I'm like a decent shot, I guess you would say. If me and you went and shot right now, I'd shoot in the 70s, right? Yeah. He got me to where I was shooting in like the mid 80s. And I was shooting pretty regularly with him in the mid 80s. And for listeners, that's 80 out of 100, right? And he looked at me one day and he said, "You could get in the mid 90s. But he said, it's going to take you 10 solid years of doing it."
You got to put in the time, Senator.
Like, I mean, it was literally like within weeks, not even weeks. I mean, it was like, let's just say weeks. Within weeks, he had jumped me from 70s to 80s. But he said it's going to take a decade for me to get from 80s to 90s. And I'm like, holy crap, are you serious? Like, it was just a couple little tricks that he showed me to get me from the 70s to the 80s. And he's like, no. From 80s to 90s, whole different game. And I think that's similar to golf, Inglis. I mean, in your context.
It
right?
is.
I mean, you can get into the 80s, but
and that's good enough.
Right, and that's
Right.
good enough for a lot of people, right? It's good enough for me.
But
for you to take it that next step, I mean, it's decades of
work.
So let's take this in context. So most of those kids that are shooting on a high level and are very successful, like in skeet and trap, your score, if you're not in the 96, 97, 98, 99, or a straight 100, you're not even in the ballpark to play with them.
That's amazing.
I mean,
wow.
And that goes all the way down to 7th grade kids, man. There's some kids that are in the 7th grade and up to the seniors that are consistently putting 96, 97, 98s up. I mean, there's some great kids in our state. Our state is really Florida, Georgia, South Carolina are top kids in the nation.
And you think starting them early is the trick to that?
I think that's got to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like anything else. You start on training wheels and then
Yeah.
you work your way up. And no different in golf. You get the better clubs. You get a couple extra targets. You get a better choke. You get a couple extra better shells. You get a couple. No different when with golf or any of them. Baseball.
Right.
Well, I was telling Jimmy this story the other day. So, they have those Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation shoots up at Palmetto Shooting Complex up in Edgefield.
NWTF.
Yeah. NWTF. And so a few years ago, you've been to some of those things.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I went to one, and when we got there, one of the hosts said, well, we got some kids here from Featherhorn, from Summerton. Why don't you just shoot in their group? And I said, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, well, you don't want to shoot with the kids from back home? I said, no. I said, I didn't take work off and drive to Edgefield to get embarrassed by a 16-year-old up here.
Right.
So I didn't shoot with them. Yeah.
Right. And every year that those kids are there, there's kids that are
Shooting in the 90s. Yeah.
high 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
High 90s.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I remember, I think the last time I was there was a kid that shot 99.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. I shot a 76.
Felt pretty good about it.
I
It
felt pretty good about it. That kid shot a 99. He's 16.
Can you imagine having the concentration level at 60?
That's crazy. That's what's amazing.
But to have your concentration, steady for 100 rounds and you shoot a 99, that's
Well, and see, getting beat that bad by a 16-year-old would get in my head. I'd probably shoot a 50 if I shot with it'd probably be even worse than usual.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about shooting ski. At least
Oh,
for
he
me.
would have so much trouble. Once he got behind, it would just be. I can hear the excuses start rolling out of his mouth.
And that's how it is, right? I mean, like, if you're not thinking about it and it's just flowing, everything's working out fine. But then you miss one, and it's just like, oh, what
Between the ears, yeah.
Yeah, I need to adjust my aim. I need to, is my left eye dominant taking over here? You start thinking about it, and it all starts going downhill, and before you know it, you're missing 5 in a row, and it's over.
It's like shooting doves. It's like you got 6, you start thinking about getting your 12.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you shot a box of shells and you only got 7.
Once you get to that point where you think about that next one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
over.
that's right. Getting that limit.
Yeah, y'all should come check out some of those tournaments, man. Even the DNR, that would be right up y'all's alley. You need to come check those out.
Where's the DNR one at?
Palmetto is where their sporting clays tournament is at the NWTF Center.
Oh, okay. All right. And where do you? Do you do your competition practicing and stuff here, or you?
We do a lot of practice here. We got a 5 stand, and we got a full sporting clays course here at the farm. I'm actually opening that up this spring. We're gonna have a couple tournaments for the public, and but we do a lot of practice here. But we also at Watery, the DNR facility at Watery is a great run facility. Richie does a great job over there, and we got a new DNR facility coming in across the highway there. Y'all might.
And he's talking about Watery. That's the old Indigo Club, which is out on 378 between Sumter and Columbia.
Yeah.
So the DNR's got a new facility coming across the street on the old Love property that they're under construction right now. And I'm not exactly sure. I think it's 5 or maybe bigger than that, 5 or 10 skeet and trap fields there.
Yeah. Excellent.
Nice. Well, I tell you what, I know we getting ready to wind down. Some of us got to get up early in the morning, especially this guy. He's in charge of the show here. But we want to say thank you a lot for having us down here in featherhornfarms.com. Is it farm or farms?
Farm.
Featherhornfarm.com. Go check them out. And you got blinds open every year, or is it a waiting list?
Waiting list.
I figured.
We're full.
I figured. It's
good problem.
It's a good club.
It sucks being the best, doesn't it?
You
put a lot of work in, brother, for real. Congratulations,
Well, thank
because
you.
you have,
Thank
and
you.
you put a lot of work in. And our new token Democrat.
I knew that was coming at some point in the show. I knew it was coming at some point on the show.
We'll forgive you.
I tell
We still
people,
love you.
if you want to draw a comparison, think more Joe Manchin, less Nancy Pelosi. Okay?
Well, I'm just glad to know now that there is another Democrat at the State House that might reach out to me on things, because me and Roger Kirby talk a lot. So now I got
Roger, that's a Lake
Roger's
City.
good people.
Yeah,
Roger is good people.
he is.
Yeah, great people.
Well, and I think that a lot of us rural Democrats in the South, we're a dying breed, but, I think the senator will be the first one to tell you. We, at least for me, I answer to the people in my district. I don't answer to any political party. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat, Republican.
And we've had this discussion on the podcast before. South Carolina legislature is way different than dealing with that federal stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it needs to stay that way, too. I hope it does.
Me too.
Well, I know we got to get out of here, but he got me hooked. I started watching that y'all's live feed from the Senate.
ETV.
ETV.
Mm-hmm.
And who was it I told you? I said if I ever had to, who was the one guy? He was filibustering something. God, the teachers thing.
Oh, Mike Fanning.
Yes.
Let me get this straight. You watch the ETV?
I know.
It's like watching C-SPAN.
All right, so Mike's
I'm embarrassed.
Mike Fanning's Skeezer.
That's a different Mike Fanning.
Oh, different Mike
two. You're thinking about Orangeburg Mike Fanning. They're talking about Winsboro Mike Fanning.
Okay.
Yeah. Fairfield.
Fairfield County. Mike.
Yes, I admit I did watch it. But hey, I'll tell you what. I hope you admit that you listen to Trilogy Outdoors podcast. It's been a blast here at Featherhorn Farms. We're going to get some sleep, get up in the morning, and go chase some of those wonderful Rimini waterfowl up here. And you can catch us every Saturday morning on Southern Anglers Radio Show on the Gator 107.9. Of course, Trilogy Outdoors magazine is on the stands now. Go grab it and check out that cover article is Hunting the Freeze, our little duck article this month, and from Blake and Daryl Hodge of the Wrecking Crew. You're going to enjoy them. And Jimmy's actually met Daryl and Blake and hunted with them before. And
Good folks.
What else we got going on? Oh, that little rodeo thing.
Grand Strand Fishing Rodeo.
Yeah.
Sign up.
Go to TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. Click on event. Click on Grand Strand Rodeo. Got any questions? They'll get answered right there. If not, call the senator. I'll give you a cell phone number if you need it. Just email me. Anyway, all right, let's go to bed. We'll be back next week. You know, we're going to be talking fins, fur, and feathers right here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.